Welcome to this explainer. Today, we are going to reverse engineer the literal blueprint of an absolute powerhouse of a dynasty, the Chola Empire. We're talking about a civilization that completely redefined maritime power, local administration, and culture in medieval India.
So think about this for a second. What actually happens when a kingdom decides to conquer not just the land, but the vast, unpredictable expanse of the ocean itself? While most early medieval empires were purely land-based and staring at the dirt, the Cholas looked out at the sea and thought, yep, that's our new highway.
To figure out exactly how they pulled this off, here's our game plan. 1. Rise of the Sea Kings. 2. Unlocking the Chola inscriptions. 3. A shockingly modern administration. 4. Temples as the beating heart. And 5. A legacy cast in bronze.
All right, part 1. Rise of the Sea Kings.
Let's kick things off with their sheer, unprecedented ambition. The geopolitical scale we're talking about here is just mind-blowing. Their influence didn't just stop at the southern tip of India. Nope, it stretched way out across the ocean to Sri Lanka, the Maldives, and they even launched a ridiculously daring naval campaign all the way to Srivijaya in modern-day Indonesia. Why? Well, local merchants there were messing with Indian traders, so the Chola king just sent out a massive navy to protect his economic interests. Talk about projecting power, right? And this kind of massive power didn't just happen overnight. It consolidated over a few centuries. It all kicked off in the 9th century with their founder, Vijayalaya. Fast forward to the 11th century, and things hit an absolute peak under the brilliant general Rajaraja I. He totally understood the assignment when it came to controlling the sea, eventually conquering the northern half of Sri Lanka. But then his bold successor, Rajendra Chola, pushed the envelope even further, leading those legendary expeditions deep into Southeast Asia.
Moving on to part 2, unlocking the Chola inscriptions.
So you might be wondering, how do we actually know all the nitty-gritty details of their conquests and daily lives? Well, they left behind thousands of inscriptions. Take the Tiruvalangadu copper plate seal, for example. This heavy, incredibly ornate object is essentially an ancient receipt of power. It physically binds together 31 copper plates that formally document a royal land grant to a local village.
The crucial takeaway here is that rulers like Rajendra Chola made absolutely sure to leave a permanent, undeniable record of their edicts. They were quite literally etching their authority into history. Just listen to this translated Sanskrit legend from the seal. Hail, prosperity! This is Parakesaravarman Majendra Chola's edict, to be born on the glittering jewels of the row of royal diadems. Wow. It's poetic, it's intense, and it leaves absolutely zero doubt about who's running the show.
But the seal itself? It's a total masterpiece of political messaging. It wasn't just some functional clasp holding plates together. It was a physical billboard showing off all the rival kingdoms Rajendra Chola had crushed. You've got the tiger, which is the proud emblem of the Cholas. But right alongside it, you've got 2 vertical fishes for the Pandyas, a bow for the Cheras, and a boar for the Eastern Chalukyas. He is literally wearing his defeated enemies' logos on his own royal seal. That is total, undeniable dominance.
Okay, part 3. A shockingly modern administration.
With this sprawling empire stretching across oceans and land masses, you've got to ask, what was the backbone keeping it all from falling apart? Well, their administration was unbelievably structured and, surprisingly, highly decentralized. It flowed from the central government headed by the king, who, by the way, frequently went on personal tours just to keep an eye on things, down into provinces called mandalams, which were often run by royal princes. Those were sliced up further into Valanadus, and finally down to the local district or village level, known as Nadu. And here is where it gets really fascinating. Their local self-government was remarkably democratic and specific. Villages basically managed their own affairs, using different types of assemblies based on who actually lived there. The was your everyday general assembly for all classes of landholders. The sabha was strictly for Brahmin-owned villages. And the nagaram? That was essentially a specialized merchant assembly operating in the heavy trading localities. These local committees were functioning in a way that feels shockingly modern. They weren't just sitting around waiting for royal orders. They actively collected land and trade taxes, they acted like a judicial body to settle local disputes, and they handled the absolutely vital job of allocating water resources for agriculture. Oh, and their tax revenue? It funded essential public works like roads, water tanks, the army, and of course, those monumental temples that totally define the era. Which brings us perfectly to part 4, temples as the beating heart. Speaking of temples, these colossal structures were so much more than just places to pray.
They were the absolute soul and the true economic engines of the Chola Empire. Let's look at the undisputed crown jewel of Chola architecture, the Brihadeshwara Temple at Thanjavur, built by Nataraja I. That towering pyramidal main tower, known as a vimana, skyrockets to a staggering height of 66 meters. To put that into perspective, try to wrap your head around the sheer scale of this project. It took an astonishing 130,000 tons of granite to build this marvel. 130,000 tons. And remember, this is the 11th century. They were moving, carving, and placing this insane volume of stone with just unparalleled precision.
And get this, to top off that 66-meter-tall vimana, they hoisted a massive, dome-like structure made of a single, solid block of stone. That one piece of rock weighs 80 tons. How on earth do you get an 80-ton block of granite to the top of a 66-meter tower without modern cranes? It's a logistical masterclass that honestly still leaves historians and architects totally baffled today.
But, how did they actually foot the bill for all this? Well, these temples thrived on specific land grants known as Devadaya or Devadana. Kings and wealthy elites would donate tax-free lands or the revenue from those lands straight to the temple. This system pumped immense wealth into the institutions, making the temples the second biggest employers in the entire empire, right behind the state itself. We're talking hundreds of workers, artisans, accountants, and priests all on the payroll. Because of this massive influx of cash, temples practically evolved into mini-cities, true multi-purpose hubs. Sure, they had spacious prayer halls called mandapas for worship, but they also functioned as local schools, teaching in both Sanskrit and everyday Tamil. They acted as hospitals, they provided welfare like food and housing for their workers, and get this, they even acted as commercial banks that financed inland and overseas trade. They were the literal beating heart of the community.
And finally, Part 5, a legacy cast in bronze. Let's shift gears from that massive, heavy granite architecture to the delicate, incredibly refined artistic legacy that still defines South India today. The Cholas absolutely mastered this complex, lost wax technique to create these highly dynamic, deeply detailed bronze sculptures. And the absolute pinnacle of this art form, it's the Nataraja, the iconic depiction of the god Shiva performing the cosmic dance. What's amazing is that every single detail on this sculpture is bursting with profound spiritual meaning, perfectly balancing rhythmic movement with raw divine power. In one hand, he holds a small drum called a damru, symbolizing the heartbeat and rhythm of creation. Another hand is raised in the Abhaya Mudra, which is a posture assuring protection and liberation for devotees. His foot is literally crushing a dwarf named Apasmara, representing the defeat of human ignorance. And the whole thing is encircled by the Prabha Mandala, a stunning ring of flames representing the endless cycle of cosmic energy.
As we wrap up this explainer on the incredible blueprint of the Chola Empire, it really leaves us with a fascinating question to chew on. We've seen their unstoppable navy, their brilliantly modern administration, and their breathtaking temples. But was the Cholas' greatest conquest their physical expansion across the vast oceans, or was it their absolute triumph over time itself, cemented through an artistic and architectural legacy that we are still standing in awe of 1,000 years later? Thanks for exploring with me, and keep questioning the history around you.